the pop culture feel, and you will.
Hey, by the way, speaking of being a hard charger, man, how was the LA Marathon? You ran it.
Yes, I am a champion. No,
Yeah. I saw your post with the flag. Did you carry that flag the whole time? Or did you guys trade off?
Oh no, so we basically there was no way we were gonna carry that flag the entire way. Yeah, 26.2 miles is a long ways. But no, we at mile 22, we had a guy meet us and he dropped us the flagpole, and then we all took turns carrying it past the finish line for the last four miles.
Right.
Yeah, it was a really cool experience. It was a lot of hard work. And
to train up for it, or
to train up for it, and then just get your body used to that. We got exactly the time I wanted to for like a first marathon experience. So yeah, I was like, dude, this is cool. The energy, everybody was out on the streets. Talk about just a cool experience to be able to like shut down an entire city.
Yeah.
That is huge, and get to run down these streets that would be literally impossible to do if this wasn't like an organized event. So it was really cool. Yeah, they must have cleared out the hobos though, because I only saw like a couple, because they must have like really took like a bamboo stick and like whipped them
They
away.
probably know. The bums probably know. Like, get out of here.
The regulars are coming.
There's even more people on the streets now, and it makes me uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but it was super cool. Yeah, we got it done. We ended up raising, we met our goal of raising $30,000 for Guardian Revival, the nonprofit that like basically we created the team to run for and fundraise for. So yeah, dude, I would say it's a success. It was a great success.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
My feet
You've
hurt.
inspired me. I'm sure are you recovered? Are you gonna be all right? Yeah.
No, yeah, I'll be fine. But like it's Wednesday, so it's my third day of recovery. But yeah, my body still hurts.
That's
that's part of the game, baby.
Yeah, that's 26.2 miles is not. It's not nothing, man.
It's not. But yeah, I mean, what's really funny is the day I ran the marathon, I went on my Facebook, and you know how it shows you the memories.
Mm-hmm.
And on March 17th, we did our Baton Death March last year.
Hey, no kidding.
Yeah. So it was literally
right,
exactly a year later, I did another 26.2. So I guess this has to be a yearly thing, huh?
Yeah, just torture yourself once.
Yeah, just torture myself every year, run a marathon.
You've inspired me, man. I've decided that I'm going to do my first tactical games event in September. Literally, I mean, like I was looking for a goal. When you said you were going to do the marathon, I was like, I got to do something. I got to do something, man. I can't let Cameron show me up again. Yeah. No, but anyway, that's gonna be in September, so that'll be fun. It gives me something to focus on, something to get up in the morning and work on. So it's basically CrossFitters, and shooting and cross.
I think it's an awesome idea, dude. That sounds like a lot of fun. I'll see if I can join you, maybe.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Can we Can we take a second and like shout out our producer Chris? Because
oh my god, yeah. Speaking of physical specimens.
Yeah, speaking of physical specimens, people that you are sleeper cells that you didn't know worked out. Chris ran a half marathon in Austin. He ran the Austin half marathon. Mm-hmm. And he didn't just run it. He smoked it.
He sprinted it. Yeah. What was his average, his mile average?
It was like 7. He got like a 7:30, 7:40 average for 13 miles, 13.1 miles. So shout out to Chris.
Yeah.
Who is the true unsung hero of the year.
Yeah. He's tall too. For those of you that don't know, he's tall. He's what, like 6'1", 6'2"?
Yeah, he's a tall guy.
Yeah, he's a tall guy. So
so he can move. Man can move.
Bit. Yeah, he can move, man. Way to go, Chris. Way to go, Magic Voice, Chris. It's not just the voice that is magic; it's the body as well.
See, folks, we're out here. We're getting after it. We got plans. We got achievements. So get up.
Yeah,
go do stuff.
No excuses. Yeah. Life is short. And it's full of wars.
Yeah.
That's
nice.
Yes. Today, folks, if you have read the title of the episode, which you should have, don't just arbitrarily click on an episode. Okay. You never know what you're going to get. We can talk about anything, but in this one, we're talking about, it's kind of a wrap up or kind of a once over the world. We're going to go through major conflicts, I guess, major American involved conflicts. Because there's tons of conflicts, obviously. Conflict has been the one constant in human. Since Cain killed Abel, we've been killing each other, as I'm fond of
Since
saying. Is that
sticks
your
and
cat?
stones.
Is that your
That is,
kitty
can you
cat?
hear him in the
Yeah,
back?
that's pretty. I think
You
it's
need to
awesome.
quiet down, man. You need to quiet down.
But you're not paying attention to me.
There he is. Yeah, he's not being cool today.
That's okay. That's okay.
That's okay. We'll keep trucking along.
That's right. So today, everyone, Cameron and I are going to go through some major American conflicts from just before the beginnings of the United States all the way up through the ones that we have been involved in. Most of the ones we've been involved. I'm sure that we've been involved in a lot of secret wars that we don't know about that are still classified. And we're going to try to give you and talk about why the best representation of each one, what pop culture piece of pop culture best represents each individual conflict, and the reasons why we think so. So that's today's episode, folks. You can tell us if you agree with our list or if not. And then we'll talk about some honorable mentions and some other, whether it be a smaller conflict or another historical incident that we think, oh, yeah, that has a great representation. And here's why. So
great opening, Izzy.
yeah.
But I don't want to waste any time. Let's go into it. Let's go right into it, starting with the French and Indian War.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, Cam, because we're not technically a nation yet, right?
We're not.
United
No,
States.
yeah.
We're still
Just land.
Yeah, this land was our land, and it was their land, and then it became our land because we took it from them, and they didn't,
Yes.
But it was the Indian land for a really long time. North America, has been a land of conflict since the very beginning. Not the very beginning. I know that they had the Mayflower, the Pilgrims came over. There were some good times, man. We had some good times, but then
good times.
National interests take over. France and England, I think. They are both vying for territory. And then the Indian tribes and conglomerations of Indian tribes, they pick their sides. And so French and Indian War, that was that. And then I think did it lead to American independence or like it kind of precipitated it? Because I feel like history, at least American history, it's just lulls between conflicts that are
it's just a little bit
the
of
seeds of which are planted before in the previous conflict. Like
Yeah.
World War I, that's the seeds were planted for World War II in World War I and the aftermath.
I mean, I could see so because in the French and Indian War, so we have that 1754 to 1763, so 7 years. A little bit longer than 7 years was the theater of the 7 Years' War. Okay, so basically we had North American colonies, British Empire, which was us. That's who we came over.
That's where we came from. Yep.
And then versus the French with various Native American tribes split between loyalties, right? So different tribes are attached to different things.
Yep.
So basically, I think Great Britain ended up pretty much taking the cake, and then which ultimately led to the rebellion against Britain for the settlers from the colonies to now, which became America. So yeah, I think the French and Indian War Ranger routes. The only reason I'm even familiar with this war is because Rangers, the lineage that we were taught when we were in, goes all the way back to the French and Indian War. But I believe off the top of my head was Benjamin Churchill. Let's see, Benjamin Churchill on the Google machine was an American military officer, and he was in the French and Indian War. Yes, okay. Cool.
All right.
Nice. I remember. See, and then he was also outbreak. Let's see. Oh, because actually we go back before that to the King Philip's War. Never mind.
Before the French and Indian War?
Yeah, during the French and Indian, the church participated in asymmetric warfare against the French and their indigenous allies. He led troops to raid French colonies of Arcadia during the King William's War and Queen Anne's War, stating his military career rank of captain. So, anyways, never mind. He died in 1718. This was before. This is the King Philip's War. Anyways, people.
Well, hey, let's get to our pick for the best encapsulation for the French and Indian War, which you probably can guess, folks, because there's not too many movies.
Yeah, there's not a lot
involving the French and Indian War, and 3 of them are basically the same one. But we chose the Michael Mann movie, Last of the Mohicans.
Absolutely, for good reason.
Yes. Oh my God. What an amazing film. Great because it gives the great context, right? It's a personal story, right? It's basically a love story
Yep.
between Daniel Day-Lewis and Madeline Stowe, their characters, but it's set against the backdrop of the French and Indian War.
Yeah.
And
It's kind of going on in the background.
yeah, it
We're
gives a
just in the
great
middle of it.
yeah, they're just in the middle of it. And it's also kind of like it's a bit of a melancholy or a sad tale because the Last of the Mohicans, it's actually not Daniel Day-Lewis. He's a white kid who was his family was killed, and then he was raised by these Mohawk guys, and they're basically the last two. It's a father and a son, you
Yeah.
know,
They're the
and
last of
so
their bloodline.
yeah, and so there's a bit of a commentary of the the slow expansion of European nations coming into the American lands, and just kind of the slow encroachment of Indian nations that partnering with them, moving away and file, but and then it's kind of just like I know popular culture is like we killed them. We just brought in a bunch of a chicken pox infested blanket to just
Yeah,
wipe
we
them
just
all out,
use
just
the
stood in a
birth of chemical
line and
warfare.
marched slowly across the plain, just shooting Indians everywhere we. But it's just kind of what happens when two cultures meet one another or multiple cultures come together. Inevitably, they are influenced by one another. There's some conflict, and eventually, there's an equilibrium that's established. So I feel like Last of the Mohicans is a good kind of little snapshot of that time period. When these world powers, French and India, France and England, and then by their proxy, of Indian tribes who choose their loyalties to say, hey, we're going to go with these guys, and they're going to go with them. So, you
Yeah.
know, when did you
That's a
first see Last of the Mohicans, Cam?
Ooh, okay. I actually saw Last of the Mohicans when I was in Ranger Regiment because
Really?
yeah,
Oh,
it
wow,
was
cool.
a little later in life. Because there's a few movies obviously that people obsess over.
Hmm.
And yeah, The Last of the Mohicans is one of those movies. I don't know, that holds a very high rank within the military for like, pieces of films that or a film that you should watch if you're in the military.
Hmm.
Because the soundtrack is legendary.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think I've told you this story where we had like a family day or something where like all the kids were running around. I think this was like in 2017 or 18, and it was like I think it was an FRG event. But it was
Okay.
one of those
Family
mandatory
readiness group.
days that
Yeah.
everyone's going to be here.
Yeah, you're voluntold to.
Yeah, you're like everyone's going to be here even if you don't want to be, and
Yeah.
you're going to have fun. So so I remember they had like little on the Ranger, there used to be this ginormous like green grass lot. And that's where like the Ranger Memorial is. If you literally Google Maps Fort Lewis, I guarantee you will be able to find Second Ranger Battalion because there is like a 100-foot 2 diamond or Ranger scroll. What was it? Is it a I think it's a Ranger scroll that's on the ground that you can like see
Oh, Steve from
from
Orbit.
the. Yeah, literally. I mean, that'd be funny if I could pull that up. Let's see if I can. But yeah, we have this giant uh green grass like lot next to it, and it was like a bunch of stations set up for all the kids and stuff, and
Wow.
they had a tomahawk throwing station that
Ah.
literally the entire time would just on loop for like 6 hours straight just play the Last of the Mohicans sound. And I just remember listening to it all day, and we had a sergeant major at the command sergeant major of the time at 275, uh, and he was loving it. So that's kind of like if you if you were there, you're like, yeah, I know. Yeah, when was your first experience with that movie?
Man, it's one of those. I first saw this movie in Colorado Springs. I remember it was playing. It was one of those things that was playing in the background
Yeah,
at a different and you kind of intend to just have it be in the background, but then like you end up sitting down. Everybody ended up sitting down and watching it because it's
yeah,
one of those movies that you can just it's just so watchable. And then since then I've sat down and actually fully given it my attention. But yeah, I love it because I remember being surprised when at the end I thought the son, the son is the one that carries on and lives his life, and the Indian son, the Mohawk Indian son, he actually gets killed by Mogwai.
Yeah.
And then the father's like he's just like, oh, well, all right, once we were here,
That's
But
rough, dude.
yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis is I've always enjoyed his performances, and Wes Studi, I met him once. He
Yes, I
came
met
to
him once, of
UNC, yeah.
course.
So it's always very important to mention that. But Last of the Mohicans, yeah, man, French and Indian War, great little encapsulation. It's always good when you got to do this. The context is too big, right? Unless you're doing some sort of documentary or some sort of epic film or miniseries about the entirety of it, you got to make it personal. So they kind of put these two people in the midst of the story. And Michael Mann, I've always loved his direction. So
yeah, it's really cool. All right.
You got it.
All right. So right here.
All right. This is why you got to watch the YouTube versions, folks, because we're looking at Fort Lewis right now. Cameron brought it up on the Google. Second Ranger. That's huge, man.
It's huge.
Is that grass or is that colored grass or is that turf or something?
This is like actually this orange part. So this is all bricks.
Okay.
And then this orange part is colored bricks, but each one has the name of a donor that helped donate to create this memorial.
Right on. Okay.
So yeah, this is that green lot, that massive green lot I was telling you about, where this is like where we do our formations and everything. And then this is the company area. So then, that's Beatco right there. That's where I would work.
All right.
Yep. And then this is where I'd live. Right here.
Go up a little bit. Could we say, is that the exit road going out to the main drag?
Yeah, right here.
So go up.
You want to go to yours?
Yeah, and then go to the right.
And then go down this road. All the way. And then it's going to fork and go this way. And then we're going to get to right there.
Oh, is that? Oh, there we go. Hey, all right. That's where I was.
Yep, I literally told you down the street, or this first group. Yeah.
You kind of went the back way. That's good. You really do know Fort Lewis.
That's our 5-mile route. So we basically would turn around right here or right up here.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you wanted to go the real way, you'd go here. This is the main road.
Yeah, it's the main
road. And then you'd hit there. There's a PX.
Yep.
And you go down here.
That's where when me and the wife went for our anniversary trip, we went on there.
We're back.
That's where we were stopped. The fence line was like, oh, I don't care.
Right
I don't
here.
Really, yeah, right there.
Yeah, we should have a little gate that you can't. Yeah, right here.
Little gate
That's
there.
the little gate. Yeah. That's fun.
That's fun, awesome, man. That's cool. Okay. Good memories. Good times.
Good times. All right. So that's the French and Indian War. I agree with you. The Last of the Mohicans, amazing representation. I mean, not a lot to pick from, but I'm glad the few choices that we do have were well made.
Yes.
All right. Moving on. American War for Independence.
Yes.
A lot of movies made about this. It's either called the American Revolution, the War for Independence. Same.
Yep.
But there's a lot of great pieces here. I know you have something I've actually never looked into. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I chose a book for this one. And books still count, folks. They still exist. Okay.
They are a thing.
Not all about movies and television and video games. But the book, Washington, A Life by Ron Chernow. And I chose this because Washington's life, he started as an Englishman, and the book chronicles his entire life from before his birth, his family lineage, up to his whole career going into the American Revolution, and then afterwards, and then ultimately his death, and then talks a little bit about, his legacy after that. So it's a great encapsulation. His life is the thread through which you can kind of see the American War for Independence, because I think a lot of pop culture around the American. Heck, we got, I think it's Assassin's Creed 3 takes place during the American Revolution. We got Turn, which is a great series about spies during the American Revolution. So a lot has been made, and so that's why I chose this one. I listened to it on audiobook. It's like 20 hours long. It's so huge.
My God.
Ron Chernow is good. He's a good guy if you want biographies and historical accounts. He's written a lot of stuff. So Washington was great. The thing I like about this book, if you want a sort of review, is it shows Washington that, he's not like this saint. We have him as like this kind of saintly figure. He did everything right. He never made any mistakes, but he did make mistakes, and he had his flaws. And for example, during the American Revolution, he wasn't the best tactician, but he was super organized, and he knew how to hold an army together with a lot of discipline and a lot of structure. And that was one of the most important things about the American Revolution, was having that army and keeping it together and not letting it fall apart. And it's just simple stuff like, how are you going to get these soldiers paid? How are you going to keep them in the camp? How are you going to keep camp organized? And then also he did seem to be totally fearless when it came to being in battle. By all accounts, he was on the front lines. He was running like through the front lines. He'd have horses shot out between him, underneath him, and he did like to lead from the front when there was a battle. So you can give him that credit. But then, it just through his presidencies and there's all these details, and working with people and trying to make treaties and going back and forth. So
yeah, sorry, I can't help but laugh, because I'm not laughing at your explanation. Washington, like, obviously he's one of the founding fathers. He's the first president of our country. Just this reminds me of a stand-up. You ever heard of a guy named Shane Gillis?
No.
It's his real. Let's see, Shane.
Well, there's the Nate Bargatze Saturday Night Live Washington skit. That if you don't know that, folks, go and look that up. Washington's Dream or something like that. That's great.
Yeah, no, the comedian Shane Gillis. He cracks me up. He did this one bit. He has a stand-up that's available on Netflix right now. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. It's really funny. But he does this bit about Washington. Like, he went to Washington's compound during COVID by himself. I think it was by himself or with his girlfriend at the time. Yeah, Mount Vernon.
Okay, all right.
And he went down there, and obviously, like you said at the beginning, you learn George Washington is seen as the founding father, right? He's one of the founding fathers, the first president of this country. He could do no wrong, chopping down the cherry tree, whatever.
Yeah, right.
But he was just like us, right? He had faults, he had issues. So he, does this bit, and obviously it's drop dead hilarious because it has to do with slavery, and he's also a really funny looking guy. So when he's wearing his mask, all you can see is his eyes, and the guys probably think he's there by himself, and he's has Down syndrome. So they're treating him like he's special. And but anyways, he's they come to the end of the tour, and they have Washington's teeth on display, and a lot of people think his teeth are made of wood, but that's not the case. Washington's teeth, and this is one of the things that you're like, what the fuck? Yeah, Washington's teeth were actually made of a combination of human teeth, horse teeth, cow teeth, the whole 9 yards, and he would just keep them in his mouth. And then you mentioned that he was fearless on the battlefield, and in this stand-up, it's it's kind of obvious. No shit. He was and he was really tall. He was 6 foot something.
And for that day, that was when people were not.
Oh, that was a giant.
Yeah.
Yeah. So could you just imagine this guy, this giant among men, on the other side? Imagine you're a British guy.
Yeah.
And you just see this ginormous guy coming at you, and no wonder he's fearless, because he's probably got mercury poisoning from all this shit in his mouth, and he's just coming at you, foaming from the mouth, because he's just poisoning himself with his fucking teeth. Oh yeah, awesome. Check out that stand-up. It's absolutely hilarious.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really good bit. But yeah, George Washington is
George Washington.
Yeah, back to Washington, man. Yeah, no wonder he's scaring the shit out of people, foaming from the mouth, just crossing the Delaware. We're gonna fucking kill him.
That's why he won the first presidency. Nobody would run against him.
Nobody really wanted to tell the guy he lost. Okay. Yeah.
All right, Cameron. That's my pick.
Well, my pick for American Revolution it's a pretty easy one. It's the Patriot.
There you
It's
go. Classic.
classic. The reason I picked it as one of the best representations, just because there's historical relevance. It's based off an event. Um, it's more of a propaganda piece than anything because who doesn't like seeing just this guerrilla military
Yeah.
crushing the British and at the end raising the flag up in the battle. It's just a pro-American piece, and
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And not to mention, oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's I just gonna you right in line with what you're saying. I just wanted to read the tagline from IMDb. Peaceful farmer Benjamin Martin is driven to lead the colonial militia during the American Revolution when a sadistic British officer murders his son.
Yeah, it's a pro-American piece, and I love it. It's it fuels the fire. I feel like there's still some tension going on between America and England. It'll never, go away.
We're like
As long,
sibling. We're like like love hate siblings. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's like we're always gonna give each other a hard time, but hey,
yeah. Like we're not
we
gonna
love each other.
forget
Yeah.
because the 4th of July is a thing.
Yeah.
You
Oh
know?
yeah.
Yeah, we celebrate that shit every year,
It's the
and
most
we blow.
anti-British holiday ever.
Yeah, and we're not gonna forget because thousands of people lose fingers every year because of that day. So like it's a very important thing to us. And then yeah, it's just and then you also have the fact that it's loosely based off of Francis Marion, the character who was in the American Revolution,
hmm
who, basically did exactly what this character does. I'm sorry, why am I blanking on his name? Um
He's like the
Mel
ghost or
Gibson.
something. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, he's Francis Marion. They call him the Swamp Fox. He was
Swamp.
known for having his militia do these guerrilla style attacks, these ambushes, and then basically hiding out in the swamps
hmm
to where they couldn't be tracked or detected. So I like the fact that they incorporated those elements and like kind of had the inspiration for this character based off of an actual figure.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's part of Ranger history too because Francis Marion was a Ranger. But
There you
yeah,
go.
yeah, that's why I picked that one. I think it's if it's not the Patriot, it's something very similar for the American Revolution. But yeah,
Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, man. Let's move on. Let's go to, I think right after that, I tried to do these when I was listening. I'm trying to do them in chronological order, but we got the Civil War next, which
yeah,
had a ton video games, books, television, mini series, and movies have been made about the Civil War. And one of the, we talk about the parameters. What are the parameters that we're using when you talk about how you choose the top pick for whatever war representation you're gonna choose, and so it's so much, right?
yeah,
And you can't. There's the one thing about history that I've learned is that it's complicated. You can't just say it's about this thing and that thing, or one little thing, or this person, it's all this person's fault. Like, they may have been pivotal, but there was so much that precipitated that came before that, and then a part of it, and then afterwards, which will inevitably lead to other events. But yeah, the Civil War, ton of stuff has been made about that.
a lot of stuff. So I ask you, what did you narrow it down to?
I got to go with the
Well, I'm sorry.
the
What did we
obvious
narrow it
choice.
down to?
Yeah, because we agreed on this one. But
Yeah,
Glory,
glory,
Civil War
glory,
movie, Glory.
hallelujah.
Oh man, I've seen this movie. There's not too many movies that I've seen more than once, and yet still touch me in the feels every time
Yeah,
I see them. It's so well done. It's based on a true story. It's
yeah,
Robert Gould Shaw and the 54th Massachusetts Infantry Regiment, I think, and it's a colored regiment. It was black dudes fighting for the North during the Civil War, which was slavery was a big part of why that war got fought
yeah.
for so long. It was a split in our country, great a pivotal time, I should say, in our country. And just an all-star cast. Freaking Denzel. I think he won his first
Denzel.
Oscar for this one. Yeah.
Yeah, Morgan Freeman. Yeah, of course.
And then a very young and thin Matthew Broderick.
Yeah.
And Carrie Elways, too,
Yeah.
So it just so many. And Andre Brower. Rip Andre Brower. Rest in peace, my friend. Also, I forget that he's in there, and then he went on to do, I think it was Brooklyn Nine-Nine after that. Not directly after, but but in a very saturated field of pop culture when it comes to the Civil War, Glory stands alone. So yeah, true story, great acting, great story. If I could only show somebody one Civil War movie, it would have to be this one.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I haven't said it yet, but we are in agreement that this is an amazing representation. We can't deny the fact that slavery was like was totally one of the triggers for the Civil War, right?
It's
You
one
can't
of the
deny
main
that.
triggers. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You can't be like, oh no, there's other reasons. There was,
Well,
but
the states'
this
rights.
was the most important reason,
Yeah, exactly. Like the right to continue to have slaves.
Yeah, to continue to have people.
And
And
that's one of the things. I mean, like in American history, it was an issue before we were a nation. It was an issue while we were trying to form the Constitution. It was an issue after that, and then eventually it led to the Civil War.
Yeah. I mean, in the history of the world, slavery wasn't a new thing. The United States didn't invent slavery by any means. No, if you've read the Bible, you know that slaves were, they helped build the pyramids. But
right.
Yeah, but I mean, it came to an end. Here it came to an end. So can we kind of be like, yo, that's awesome.
Yeah, and anyway, if you want to, in terms of credit, I love America. I think I'll give us credit here in this one in terms of how long we were officially a country until we got rid of slavery officially. That's a pretty short time period because England, I think they got rid of slavery officially before we did, but they had it for hundreds of years before then.
Sure.
We had it for 60, 80 years officially, and then we had a big old war about it. So yeah, highly contested issue. Contentious issue.
Yeah,
but
got it done.
Yeah, got it done. Thank you,
Abraham
Lincoln.
Yep.
For single-handedly ending slavery.
There you go. His teeth were made of wood too, apparently.
Yeah,
right?
We have a lot of tall presidents. We like our
a lot of tall
presidents.
guys, dude. That's why I could never be president.
Yeah, I know, man.
Yeah, if you look up, I think the shortest president ever was like 5'11" or something.
Really? There's got to be some psychological truth to that in terms of how we view tall people generally. I think I heard once we just project positive traits, leadership traits onto tall people, whether they deserve it or not. They just happen to be born tall. But we like our tall people. We like somebody to look up to.
Yeah, it sucks. Let's see. Yeah, I think they're. Oh wait, the shortest James Madison was 5'4", but he was also he was
the super
literally
genius.
and he was right at the beginning when 5'4" was like that's a healthy height.
Yeah.
It's
a good pick at the time.
Yeah, Lincoln was 6'4".
What do you like about Glory, Cam?
What do I like about Glory? I like the fact that I think just the message it spreads. I think the military has often had a negative connotation about groups, and everyone thinks a lot of the military is, more right leaning. So therefore they, are against pretty much the whole diversity inclusion thing. But I think it just shows you it doesn't really matter how tall you are, how short you are, what color your skin is, your sexual preferences, any of this stuff. When there is a war that needs to be fought, you don't care about what that person does at home. You don't care about, the choices they make. All you care about is if they have your back and if I have their back.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just you strip everything away, and at its core, it's a brotherhood.
Yep.
So that's the whole thing that I really love about Glory, and that's the biggest message that can come out of it is you have free men that choose to fight against an atrocity that they see in their eyes, alongside other people that may think differently from them or are differently from them, and it doesn't matter. We all are red on the inside.
Yeah, no kidding, man. Yeah, it's a great message because even in the midst of this, they talk about it, they showed in the movie they had pay problems, they had supply problems, and yet these all black regiments throughout history, there's been a couple examples, World War I, World War II, where these all black units, will just totally clean house and they'll totally tear it up with fewer resources. They're just so driven, and that back during time periods it's easy to argue that there was systemic racism and there were laws that were against them, and yet they still stood up, and there was one black veteran that says it was because the promissory note of the Constitution, the promise of the future that we will have all equality and stuff. That's what they're fighting for, for
not
the
the
future.
now. It's the
Yeah,
then.
yeah, because obviously it's demonstrable that right now, they don't got it, and yet they still stood up and decided to fight for America. So that's pretty cool.
World War I.
Yeah,
What's your pick here, Izzy?
My pick. This was a tough one because I feel like in more recent memory, there's been this maybe just increase of World War I movies and lore or pop culture, and so I guess you got to choose what your parameters are when you are deciding, like, if you only got one shot to show somebody something from World War I. And I think the one I chose was like the human cost, right? And again, it's a personal story, something really kind of intimate, and it's also just well done technically. They did it in one shot, but 1917 was my pick. That came out not too long ago, and it's from the director, I think, of American Beauty, Sam Mendes. He also did some James Bond stuff, but yeah, it's kind of like that generation. If they're not all gone now, they very soon will be. I think we got a couple 100+ year olds from that generation. But yeah, this crazy conflict. World War I was weird because I think it kind of started out light, and everyone kind of thought it was not going to last that long, and then it ended up going on for years and years and years after that, and everybody's kind of got caught up in it. And then I think the seeds of World War II were planted, like you say, in World War I. But 1917, great. Sam Mendes, tracking shots meant to be like a one shot the entire time without any cuts. They got a couple in there, but really technically well done, well acted. And yeah, so it's, those guys, they got to send that message from one to the other. And they got that great tracking shot at the end where the guy's running to try to tell him to stop the assault, and they're already assaulting. So he's like tripping in guys, and he's getting back up, and he's trying to run into the trenches to stop everything from happening. But it's cool. It's one of those war movies that inspires you, but it also shows the human cost, which now, as obviously we'll talk about another episode, but the evolution of the war movie and why war movies are made and what the message is that they want to get across in public perception of war movies. I thought this struck a good balance.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, and we will talk about that on a future episode. There's some foreshadowing, not really foreshadowing because we just told you, but
foretelling.
Yeah, foretelling you. I chose All Quiet on the Western Front,
the new version.
The new version. Well, just because, I mean, same message from the old version to the new version. The new version is just cinematically is beautiful. But it's interesting because now I'm reflecting on I chose The Patriot for the American Revolution for the reasons that it is a pro-American movie. It is it's pro-war. Like a lot of these movies that we're very fond of today are very pro-war movies, and it's great because I don't know about you, I love war. I like it. I like it.
There's a place for everybody.
Yeah, there's a place for everything, but I also feel like there's sometimes war is necessary in some situations. Like, how long are you going to deal with something before people take up arms about it? So I feel like the American Revolution was, in my opinion, a necessary war.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have All Quiet on the Western Front, which is anything but a pro-war movie. Its main message, it follows those Prussian soldiers, and their life is just hell.
Yeah.
It's like nobody would care if they didn't come home. And then not to mention the sequences of war they go through. I feel like World War I, we started to have these technological advances in weaponry, but not in personal protective equipment.
Yeah.
So basically your death would be absolutely brutal, but there's no real good way to, prevent it from happening. Like now we have helmets, plates, we have up armored vehicles.
NBC equipment.
Yeah, like
or Seaburn,
that's when the World War I is when they started using the gas weapons, and and that I couldn't even imagine that. And have you seen the pictures of the gas masks from World War I?
Yeah, they're pretty pitiful.
Oh man, there's no way they're like made of like like a waxed canvas that just like there's no way they properly seal.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just that environment is just terrible. And then trench warfare in itself,
right.
uh, you're just constantly static. Some guys just if you make one wrong step, you're dead. People tunneling, trying. The only really way to move was to either completely expose yourself without cover or to tunnel your way through into another person's
Yeah,
trench system. It was just a bad kind of bad time.
yeah. We're just
And
feeding thousands of men into the meat grinder on that
yeah,
one.
literally, rats don't go hungry. Like the rats were fat.
Yeah,
So I think All Quiet on the Western Front is one of the best representations of World War One, just because like from a tactics side, from a humanity side, from a technology side, it was just an awful war.
yep, yeah. We were really even World War II, which we'll talk about next. We had learned from World War One, so there were
Yeah.
advances in protective equipment and tactics. But yeah, World War One was like that first, that first taste of that true brutality and
Yeah.
viciousness of warfare and war technology.
Yeah, implementing chemical warfare, the invention of tanks, like
Yeah,
man, yeah, that one scene in All Quiet on the Western Front when the tanks are advancing and they have like the flamethrowers coming out of it.
yeah,
Can you
yeah.
imagine you're just stuck in your trench and like your little puny bolt action rifle isn't doing a damn thing?
Yeah, they were
Yeah,
massive, man. Tanks
massive.
were they went big in World War One. These massively tracked vehicles that could
Yeah,
kind of like, to get over the trenches and
yeah.
yeah, crazy, man.
Running over anything and everything.
Yep,
But yeah, so that's World War One. World War Two, like you said, we learned a lot. We got a lot of more advances.
yep,
But this World War One planted the seed for World War Two. Obviously, we now it's pretty much we can identify a pretty evil entity that needs to be taken out. The axis of evil.
right,
Uh,
right.
yeah, we had the Pacific
Fascists and
Front, the Europe.
communists.
Yeah, we had the Pacific
Yeah,
Front, we had the European Front, and we had a lot of pieces, a lot of historical battles that came out of that. That some really good pieces of pop culture were inspired from. So I'll start out with my pick if you don't mind.
yeah,
I'm just gonna say, we already. I don't know how many times we've talked about Saving Private Ryan on this podcast, so I'm not even. Everybody knows that's the best World War II movie that's ever been made.
right.
So I'm just gonna put it off the side and just say that.
Yeah,
Okay. But
that's like
there's
my
some
aliens. It
yeah,
just needs to be said. It doesn't need to be said because I've said it so many times.
exactly. So I picked Fury. I rewatched
Mm,
Fury. Um, it's an amazing movie. It's so well done. Brad Pitt does such a good job. I'm a big Shia LaBeouf fan as an actor. I
I
think he's
like
a little
Shia
bit
LaBeouf's acting. Yeah,
yeah, he's a really good actor. It has a killer cast.
yeah.
Michael Pena, Brad Pitt, Shia LaBeouf, uh, what's his name? Joe
John
or
Bernthal.
John Bernthal, and then the young guy. They just do such an excellent job of just showing a very seasoned tanker crew that have been through a lot.
Yeah,
I also appreciate the fact that like it incorporates some storytelling from Africa because there was a campaign going on in Africa before we even set put yeah
shot put.
yeah shot put. There was a campaign going on in Africa before we even set foot in Europe, and tanks were like the main thing. So I appreciate that like historical relevance. I mean, when Patton was like everybody knows General Patton was like the tank guy. Like it was
Yeah.
the famous pictures of him all the ways on the tanks, and that's what he was. He was in Africa before they sent him to the European theater. So I appreciate the little storytelling there.
Hmm.
The uses of tanks, just how they know that they were outgunned from the German tanks because
Yeah,
German
they're
tanks
more
were
advanced.
just they were way more advanced. The Germans, just in general, formidable opponent.
Yeah, they got
Uh,
the what is it, the Wehrmacht or the War Machine, they were
yeah,
pumping them out. They were getting ready. They were getting ready for war before anybody knew that they were getting ready for war.
yeah. I mean, I feel like they knew they were going to be facing the world, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's how freaking they prioritize that's how they prioritize their assets, was like, we know we're going to be at war by ourselves,
Yeah.
or almost by ourselves against the world, so we're going to have to start pumping out some stuff. So like, yeah, their tanks were faster, more durable than ours, so like we were at a clear disadvantage. But I think just the storytelling of Fury, just you can see like the impact that the war had on the crew, the impact the war had on Brad Pitt's character as the NCOIC, which is non-commissioned officer in charge
Mhm.
of the tank crew. Like that scene where they come back, they've lost a man in the beginning, and they are outfitting, and they told the that officer, they're like, they're like, where's the rest of the platoon? We're like, we're all that's left. And he like tells the guys to, he's still building character. And then he goes off to the side and nobody can see him. And then he like breaks down. And it's
Yeah.
like, dude, that's a very powerful scene.
Yeah.
Because it's like, from a leadership position, you cannot let the men see you like that.
Mhm.
You are their example. You are their motivation. You are the influence, right? It's what is there's an army definition of leadership. It's to provide purpose, motivation, to influence. Here, what is that? Let's see. Army definition of leadership.
It's so funny. Fury is one of those examples where it's totally, it seems anti-war, but it's also, it pumps you up. Even as you
It
see these
does.
guys, they're totally affected and scarred mentally from the things that they've
Yeah.
been through, and yet they've molded together into this dysfunctional family. And
Yeah.
you see the young character get Logan Lerman. He gets inculcated into the life of this tank family, and he ends up, getting that infected with that attitude, and he's like totally bloodthirsty at the end of it and fighting for the tank to stay alive.
Yeah, no, it's good. And here it is. The Army ADP, so FM 6-22, which is the Army's doctrine on actual leadership. They have like an entire manual. It's the process of influencing people by providing purpose, direction, and motivation to accomplish the mission and improve the organization. So, like, your role as a leader is to literally be the backbone of this crew.
Yep.
So if you break down in front of them or you break, so will they.
Yeah.
So it's just for a pick about like World War II. I think it does a great job. It incorporates infantry with the tankers. It shows all the elements. Yeah, it's Fury was my pick for World War II.
That's a great pick, man. I mean, I think my pick is pretty obvious to anyone who's a big fan of World War II pop culture, of which there is, I think it's probably the most in our
Yeah.
history of World War II pop culture. But Band of Brothers, HBO miniseries, takes the unit from training all the way through to the end of the war, and it is a great. It's that brotherhood, right? It's the bonds that you create. It's a little like Fury, only they don't see as much of the dysfunction, at
Yeah.
least not so overtly, but
They are
it's
a band of brothers.
yeah, and you got the real guys too. That's one thing I liked about
Yeah.
that miniseries. They'd start each episode with an interview with somebody, and some guys you could tell who they were. They revealed it at the end, but you could tell who they were. Some of them you couldn't, so you didn't know which guys you were seeing, and some characters would die partway through the series.
Yeah.
But that was my favorite part of it, and some of the true stories that came out of it, like Spears running through town to get communication to the unit on the other side of the town, and the town's filled with Germans. He runs through town, and then he runs back through town again, and the Germans are just like watching him run, like so confused, like that actually happened. Like, so great encapsulation of the brotherhood of war, the bonds that come out of it, in a time when, yeah, like you say, we were pretty united about who the bad guys were and who the good guys were.
Yeah. Yeah. It was unanimous.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great pick too, man. Band of Brothers is just one of those series. Like they had the Band of Brothers, they had the Pacific, and now they have Masters of the Air. Is like that Steven Spielberg, Tom
Yeah.
Hanks triad of World
Yep.
War II magic.
Yep.
So yeah, dude, great picks. Or yeah, good picks. Let's move on to Korea. We're running a little low on time.
We are running a little. We're only up to Korea. Okay,
I know. Jeez.
See if we can be a little more concise.
Let's be concise. All right. For me, I was fighting between two. I think I'm just gonna say two really quickly. because one's from American perspective, one's from Korean. I think that's important
Yes.
because we haven't done that yet.
Hmm.
For me, it's an older movie. We've talked about it in our Korean War. Pork Chop Hill. It's portrays American invasion or Korean War, American involvement. They're trying to take this hill, and obviously they're undergunned. They've tried to do it in the past, and it's just really well done for an older movie. Like the FX and everything uh, are just really well done for the time. And then also the front line from 2011. It's from a Korean. It's a Korean movie,
Hmm.
and I think it just does a really good job of coming from an American's perspective, comparing how like Korean War movies are made. Ain't shit's different. That's what I
Hmm.
appreciate about it. Like if you think the enemy you're fighting is the same as you,
Yeah.
just they speak a different language and they look a little different.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really cool little thing that, or at least perspective that I've established watching foreign films about like different wars and different perspectives on it, or at least from their perspective.
Yeah.
So those are my choices for a good Korean War movie.
Korean War movie pick is Taegukgi. I've spoken of it often and very highly. It's a Korean film about the Korean War. The best thing about this film is that it takes what I think is the essence of the Korean War, which was the tearing apart of a country in two, and the separation of families and by political and military forces. Kind of Korea about kind of being caught in the middle of the geopolitical upheaval at the time, the Cold War,
Mhm.
really. And it's about two brothers, and one ends up fighting for the North and one ends up fighting for the South. And it's just about the kind of tragedy of that, of Korea kind of
Yeah.
being, because Korea wasn't always North and South. It was Korea.
Nope.
And
Yeah.
now, and so there's kind of a tragic, sad movie made by Koreans. So yeah, really well done. That's my Korean War pick.
Okay. Moving on. Vietnam. I'm going to Vietnam War.
Vietnam.
A lot of picks here. I think
Yeah.
Vietnam is uh is almost like, comparatively speaking, to World War II in the pop culture eyes.
Yep.
But the reason I picked mine, which is Hamburger Hill, we've talked about it.
Yeah.
In my opinion, one of the most violent war movies I've ever seen. The entire movie is a combat sequence.
Yeah.
What seems like, and it's not just like, we're shooting, we're shooting, we're shooting. It's like, dude, people are exploding like arms, and we failed to get up this hill. We come down, we have a little dialogue. We try to go up the hill again, come
Yes.
down, have a little dialogue. And it's
Yeah.
just it's the story of American unit trying to take this hill and just suffering massive casualties. But apparently, this hill's so worth dying for that they're going to continue to try and take it and try and take it and try and take it. Finally, they take it, and then it's useless. And then they're like, okay, we don't need this hill anymore.
Yep.
So it's just the combat, I think, in the terms of Vietnam jungle warfare, right up in your face. It's watching it, I was just like, oh my God. Some war movies are character driven, some war movies are storytelling. This was this was something.
Yeah.
That's why I threw it on there. I think there's really good Vietnam War movies like Platoon that
Mm,
more tell a story about character development.
yeah.
But I think to just represent war itself, Hamburger Hill was, yeah.
Yeah. I got to go super patriotic with mine. We Were Soldiers. It's an earlier Vietnam War film. I think it was the first major engagement between the regular American army and the regular Viet Cong, the Vietnamese army.
Yeah.
Major engagement, true story, and more character driven, I would say. Obviously, pro American, super patriotic. Mel Gibson he's pretty good at that. He's a pretty proud American.
Yeah, he loves America.
Yeah, he loves most of Americans. But we were soldiers. Great. Yeah. I love it's a true story, and you think about them being surrounded and being pushed upon by all sides, and they still ended up counterattacking and ultimately I think prevailing, but man, with major losses. And so that's my pick for Vietnam. I know there's a lot of stuff you can. It depends on what story you want to tell with whatever war you're talking about. Vietnam, I feel like in pop culture, it's mostly this kind of down, morose, sad. It was useless. It was pointless, and and that's a conversation for another time. But We Were Soldiers. It's about the brotherhood. It's about these guys going over there and fighting for each other. And I think that's a good message, and it's based on an actual engagement, which is pretty dramatic if you think about it. So
Yeah, no, that's a good one, man. So where are we? We're at the Cold War.
we're at
Bring
the
a
Cold
jacket.
War. We can do this real quick because the Cold War, obviously, that's a name for a time period that spans what 30, 40 years.
Yeah, a couple decades.
Yeah, a couple decades, and
Not a lot of
so
action, just a lot of espionage and like,
espionage and intrigue. Yeah.
things, yeah, things going on behind closed doors. A hidden war, if you will.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you got for a quick
My
pick?
pick is War Games, classic 80s movie with Matthew Broderick, again, very young Matthew Broderick. And it's just about in the 80s, it was all about the fear of total annihilation, mutual mass destruction. We all had
Yeah.
nuclear bombs. What are we going to do? If they press the button, then we're going to press the button and everyone's going to die, kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
great. That's the kind of core message there. And if you haven't seen it, man, you got to check it out. If you like 80s movies, it's a classic.
Yeah. For my pick, I went with Crimson Tide. Um, Submarines, baby. That was the Cold War. Yeah, I call
Yeah.
it the Sub War because,
Yeah.
like, you had all these strategically placed submarines that could not be identified. They're in remote locations, but they were strategically placed in order to do precision strikes on Russia. And pretty much you have a group of men. Nobody knows where they are, and they just have one objective. And you don't know whether the machine that's giving them their mission is incorrect and their communications are down. And it's just up to these guys
Yeah.
to decide whether to push the button or to wait. And there's an internal struggle between some leadership on the boat or on the sub. And it's just one of those movies that you like, okay, when I imagine the Cold War, you think of like espionage, and I think of submarines because those guys were the ones that were, it wasn't it's not a land invasion during the word for it. This was concerned that we're going to get nukes sent at us.
Mm-hmm.
And who was going to deliver those nukes? The subs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I chose Crimson Tide. It's a great, great movie. Denzel Washington.
Yep. And Gene
Uh,
Hackman.
yeah, Gene Hackman. It's just a real nail biter of a movie, and I think it just does a really good job of showing from a perspective of the actual people that were getting action during the Cold War, or at
Nice.
least a story of what we would like to believe what was happening.
Yeah. Two things I'll say about that just real quick before we move on. There's a book called Blind Man's Bluff, which is about just what you're talking about. It's about all the submarine actions that were going on all through the Cold War from the 50s, 60s, and 70s and all into the 80s. Really great if you like war history. And then there's actually a true story about a Russian guy that almost single-handedly stopped World War III from starting because it was like that. He got an order to launch and he didn't trust it. And so he went and triple checked with his superiors that this is what was going on. They said, no, that was a mistake. And he's like, okay, and I forget what his name is, but I was like, oh, thank you, random Russian officer who didn't
Yeah,
allow World
thank
War II to
you for
happen.
your service, random Russian guy.
All right.
That's awesome.
Persian Gulf War, the precursor, maybe not precursor to Iraq War, but Persian Gulf War, really quick, lightning war. Iraq invades. Kuwait, was it? Yeah. And we go in there and we kick them out. It was real quick.
Yep. Super quick. Best representation, Jarhead. 100%.
Yep.
Some people have problems with this movie. I think it's one of the most accurate war movies that's ever been depicted.
Yeah.
From a soldier perspective. A lot of these war movies glorify the combat. But in a lot of these wars, so many people didn't see any of that. They tell stories of heroism, but what about the everyday stories?
Yeah.
And that's what Jarhead is literally about. You train, you're being told you're going to do a specific task. That's what's on your mind. I love when they're about to invade and they're all sitting. They have the Marine, either their major or whoever's in charge of the battalion is like giving the speech. He's like, "You're Marines. You're gonna go in there. You're gonna kill it. Everything's gonna be good." And the end of the movie just comes and it's just like, "Dude, we didn't do a damn thing."
Yep.
Yep.
Never fired his weapon.
Never fired his weapon. Almost did.
Yeah.
But yep, dude.
Great.
Yeah, Jarhead. We talk about it a lot. It's a great movie.
Yeah. Iraq War. The one that I was deployed to is not a lot of pop culture. I mean, there's some big names in there, none of which I wanted to pick for this one. My pick for this one is American Sniper, just because I like the personal story of this guy. and he, obviously has multiple deployments, and so I liked that one. Chris Kyle,
Yeah.
Life of
Yeah, the
Chris
story on
Kyle,
Chris
Marksman.
Kyle.
Bradley Cooper,
Yeah.
great actor. Clint Eastwood directed it, and
Fake
so
baby. Fake baby, dude.
fake baby.
Oh, watch the movie when they give birth to the kid. It
Oh,
is literally a fake baby. You
a
can tell. It
fake
is just a doll.
baby.
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, he's a really good actor.
Yeah, I know that baby's an awesome actor. Um, yeah, American Sniper, that's a good pick. Great story about Chris Kyle. Great man. I chose Sandcastle. It's a Netflix original film. It's a little bit of a newer one. It's about 2003 invasion of Iraq, a couple of big army guys, and it
Okay.
just really shows progression of like loss of innocence. Um,
Mm,
you have a brand new private that shows up and he's on deployment. He just gets to Iraq and he puts his hand in the door of a Humvee and just slams it on his hand because he wants to go home. He doesn't want to
yep.
be here.
Yep.
He's scared. He's afraid of what he might face. And then you kind of just see the progression through events of him starting out as this really innocent young man, and by the end of the movie, his eyes, you could see in his eyes that something's different. And it's funny because the way the movie starts is exactly how it ends, but it's a different person.
Ah.
So I think it's good. It doesn't have that good of ratings, but when I watched it, I was thoroughly happy with it.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's and Henry Cavill's in it,
Hey.
and then also the guy who plays Homelander from, what is it,
Oh, no kidding.
Jeffree Star. No,
Yeah,
I think
Anthony
that's a
Starr.
Anthony Jeffree Star. I think is a gay man. But yeah, Anthony Starr is in it too. So yeah, they got some big name actors in there. I think it's a good story. You got some conventional side, you got some special forces in there. So I like it.
Right on, man. Right on.
All right.
Afghanistan war, so much, 20 years worth, a lot of good contenders. I'm just going to go straight for the beginning, which I think is, when we had a strong focus, a clear mission, we knew what we wanted to do. We just got attacked in 9/11. We go into Afghanistan with the Northern Alliance. It's 12 strong. It's special forces, not too many special forces Green Beret movies out there. I thought the movie's not the best, I will admit. But I appreciate that it's about of a specific unit, the Green Berets, and what their effect was going into Afghanistan, how they got the Northern Alliance together, how they started pushing back against the Taliban, and yeah, it was at the beginning before we kind of, I don't know, just kind of started decide to hang out for 20 years.
Yeah,
But
literally.
that's it, man. 12 strong.
Okay. My pick for Afghanistan, easy pick for me. Tells story of an actual Medal of Honor, 2 Medal of Honor recipients. So it's like you can't
Mm,
go wrong. And it
mm,
was made and written by people that actually were at that outpost and were at part of that unit. We're talking about the outpost. It's one of my favorite Afghanistan movies just because the camaraderie is perfect.
yeah,
Everything about the movie, there's a little inaccuracies in there as far as just like backblast area, just like small things like
yeah,
that. But as far as the story and the message and the feeling that is communicated through the movie, um, that's it's good. It's
yeah.
good. Um, but yeah, so the outpost is a easy pick for Afghanistan war for me.
That's a good one, man. I almost changed my answer, but I like that one. Well, that is
Okay.
it, folks. That is our roundup of films that we feel best encapsulate each individual conflict that we were talking about today. Kind of just American history. I'm sure you, if you're from another country, or if you like war films about other countries, you let us know in the comments section. What do you think? What do you think about these picks, and what other picks would you add into the conversation? Um,
Oh, there's too many. I mean, there's obviously like great, not necessarily wars, but conflicts like Black Hawk Down in Somalia, Heartbreak Ridge, which
mhm,
just told the story of Grenada, Operation Urgent Fury, just with the
mhm,
wrong unit. They were recon Marines, but the actual ones were Rangers. But
yep.
it's yeah. But then and then you have Bosnia behind enemy lines. That's a
Yeah.
good one.
Great little action film.
Yeah,
Yep.
and you got not expected actors playing people.
Yeah, Owen Wilson, man, his
Oh
one
my
foray
god,
into, oh
my
wow,
jet's going down.
I'm
Oh
an action
wow.
hero. Oh, okay, I'm an American Air Force pilot.
Yeah,
Oh
wow, look at all the snow. Wow.
wow. uh,
What about you? What are some honorable mentions for you real
Honorable
quick?
mentions. I mean, listen, Platoon and like Apocalypse Now, they're powerful films, but maybe I'm just like a little too patriotic. I think there's a little too much political bias from the filmmakers at the time. They wanted to say something about the war and then also wanted to input their own little political perspective into it, which, hey, more power to them. I totally support that. I just don't want to watch those films.
Yeah, no, I
And then
gotcha.
and then War Machine. War Machine, it's about that mission drift and how hard it is to get stuff done. It's basically how to run a country as a military leader. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's tough. Somebody once said, if you break it, you own it. And we broke Afghanistan, and we really, there's a lot. It's a lot that goes into trying to
hey,
build
what a
them
mess.
up. Yeah, and then you just kind of leave. Whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever. Just pull out real fast and leave
Real
a bunch
fast.
of shit behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get there, screw it up, and then continue to screw up all the way on the way out.
Yeah.
But okay, that's gonna do that episode. Let's play our game and then wrap it up here.
Right on.
All right. So Izzy, I have the game for you. It's time for an old class.
Ooh.
It's time for an old classic, my friend. Two truths and a lie. I'm gonna give you 3 facts about a war, movie, or TV show, and you tell me if it's true or a lie.
Okay.
All right. And it's going to be pretty quick. Just got 3 here, and we're going to start out with MASH. Everybody knows MASH. You know MASH. You
Ooh, I
love
do.
MASH.
I do
So
now.
here we go. A. MASH actors Jamie Farr and Alana Alda served in the military. B. The series was on for 8 years, even though the Korean War only lasted 3 years, 1 month, and 2 days. And C. The series finale is still the most watched episode of television in American history.
That's an easy one. It actually has 11 seasons. It went on for 11 seasons. I think it would be 11 years, even though the conflict only went for 3 years. It went for a long time. It was one of the most popular American shows of all time.
Wow, yeah, you got that right on the dot. Yep, you identified that lie. The show was on for 11 years. And fun fact, the series finale, being the most watched episode of television in American history, 121.6 million people watched it.
I'm looking forward
That's
to it. We're
crazy.
in about season 7 right now, working our way through
Okay.
it. Me
Oh,
and the
still
wife.
working on it.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on, another great film, Glory, made it
Mm.
on our list. So starting off, A, the film's release coincided with the 150th anniversary of the real Battle of Fort Wagner's, which was the battle from the end of the movie.
Okay.
And B, the Civil War reenactors who took part in the film did so voluntarily without pay. And C, the film won 3 Academy Awards, including Best Supporting Actor for Denzel Washington.
That sounds like B. I'm sure they did have Civil War reenactors participate, but they probably paid them. So I'm just going to say B.
Ooh.
Ah.
They did not take a dime, allegedly, according to Chris, but the
Dang.
lie is actually the film's release coincided with the 150th anniversary. That is a lie because it was released around the 126th anniversary.
Oh,
Wow, Chris. Wow.
very, very
Very,
likes to split
very
those
tricky.
hairs, doesn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, loves to split the hairs. All right. Well, that's okay, man. Let's see if you can get this last one. So, number 3, your honorable mention, Platoon. A, the cast spent 6 weeks in actual boot camp to prepare for the movie. B, to get in the character for the scene where everyone is really high, everyone got really high. And C, Charlie Sheen almost lost out on his role to his brother, Emilio Estevez.
Huh. That's interesting. Charlie Sheen, Emilio Estevez. Wait, Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez. Are they brothers? I thought he was.
Yeah, they are brothers.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm going to say it's the first one, 6 weeks in boot camp, because I don't know that anybody spent time in boot camp. But I don't know. I'd feel like there's nothing there that would, maybe the boat people had to do some military stuff, but Charlie Sheen was just like winging it,
Yeah, no, you're right, man. Yeah, the cast did not spend. Oh wait, they spent 2 weeks in boot camp. They
Oh,
didn't spend
okay.
6, but way to go with your gut because yeah, I feel like Charlie Sheen was just winging it.
Yeah, and
I do
making a movie in the
appreciate the fact.
70s,
Yeah,
of course they're going to get high
yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, I do appreciate that fact. I also think Willem Dafoe is one of the greatest actors of our generation.
all time.
So I was like, of course he's gonna get super high if he needs to be. Um,
Oh,
yeah, but that's it, man. Good job. Way to finish strong. That's gonna do it for the game.
by the way, let me correct myself. I was thinking when we were talking about Platoon, I was still thinking of Apocalypse Now. So I was like,
Okay.
oh, that was
Well,
Martin Sheen, but it's Emilio Estevez and Charlie Sheen. Of course, they're brothers.
Of course they're brothers. Okay. Hey, you don't got to explain anything to me, man. You're always right in my book. But folks, that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for bearing with us. Went a little bit longer than we usually do, but that's okay. We just
Hey.
want to make sure that you get everything out of this podcast that you possibly can. Make sure to tune in next week for another episode. If you've made it to the end, we want to make sure that you guys know that our YouTube, we are coming out with new content, like going back to our gameology roots. Izzy and I are doing video game reactions for you. Thanks for all the support. You guys seem to really be loving those videos because they're doing great. So thank you. We're gonna plan on doing more for you. Check out our merchandise. If the Patreon sounds good to you, and if it does sound good to you, it's probably because you want a little bit more out of this podcast. You want some extra content. You want a little bit more nitty gritty out of Izzy and I. That's probably going to be the best bet to get that. So check that out. And if Izzy doesn't have anything,
all I have is cue music.